Now, my expectations were very low for this, but I just completed one of the longest live streams that I've ever done, essentially playing Warzone all day. I took 3 months off this game. Even before then, I was only playing this once, maybe twice a week, ever since Warzone 4's their integration with Black Ops 6, adding the omnidirectional movement. But I'm a dude who stuck with this game for a long time through a lot of ambitious changes. And this change is really them going back, them reintroducing Verdansk, the classic map that came out in 2020 that brought so many people back to Call of Duty in the first place. The big question is, how have they executed on the map itself? This is essentially going back to the original map. It's 95% the same. There's a new spot I found at Dealer down to the south side of the map. You can go in the water there. They added some new pieces of cover in some giant open areas, but in general, this map is just designed to be more open in the first place between the major POIs. It has very distinct POIs. If I'm talking about prison, superstore, airport, you know those draw spots and the major buildings at them. We didn't really have that in Urzikstan. And the way that I have seen this unfold is it feels like Verdansk was designed with more multiplayer and player-on-player combat versus any of the other, especially big maps that have been created. A lot of those maps and areas on it were built for ground war for Modern Warfare 2019. The only exception to that being Blackout, which literally took multiplayer maps, 6v6 maps, and put them into that map. But they didn't even have to really do any crazy execution with this map. They really didn't even need to change anything about it to have it be good. And the improvements that they did make to it, I think were fine. I didn't mind them. In fact, I think it's kind of nice to have at least a couple new areas that we can learn while also coming back to this game that for the most part, I already know the map for, so I can just learn some of the movement mechanics, the weapons, and some of the other aspects of the game. And I don't know if it was just my monitor, but the big thing they hyped up in some of the blog posts and marking for this was the lighting changes, on top of course, the graphical improvements, which I do think are nice. Although in the footage that you're seeing and what I played was mostly lower end settings, trying to push frame rate, and I'll probably tweak with that a little bit over the next coming days. That being said, the lighting transitioning in and out of buildings, from what I had seen, was great. And even inside of those buildings, I was able to see into dark corners while it still appeared dark. Now, I don't know if that's because of my monitor and some of the black boosting that I have on it or not compared to what I was running before. But what was newly introduced from the most recent big update was Black Ops 6 and the omnidirectional movement. They've diverted Warzone away from Black Ops 6, so they're no longer the exact same movement mechanics between the games. Now you move slightly slower for tactical sprint speed, amongst a couple other changes. The way they worded this in the notes, I thought it was going to be a lot slower even than what it turned out to be. And maybe I'm biased because I've already put hundreds of hours into the omnidirectional movement system that I've gotten used to it and learned some of the quirks, trained my muscle memory to know how to avoid diving by accident when I'm just trying to go prone and do a drop shot, since now you can dive sideways or backwards. But I do like this movement system as a whole. Being able to dive in any direction, slide in any direction, how fast and easy it is to mantle onto pretty much everything has opened up new window routes on buildings and parkour that just feels way more fluid. It is an extra hurdle to learn, but again, since we already know the map for the most part, at least most people that are probably playing this and watching Steven, it kind of just lets you focus on mastering that movement, which I like. I do feel like it probably could even be slowed down a bit more. Maybe they can add more settings to make it more fluid, but honestly, I'm really just more concerned for what's going to happen at the end of this year. When the next Call of Duty comes out, they add inevitably wall running, jetpacks, we merge it all back together. It's all going to go, it's all blowing up again if they don't separate Warzone out now for the future and build this into its own thing without constantly trying to have to slam this content. Because to my other point, if, for example, what happened with Urzikstan, they're trying to build this map for zombies that's only PvE, no PvP, and also trying to develop it for Battle Royale, I feel like that doesn't create the same product of what we've got now back with this map. And I hope they don't remove it again, or even reset all our cosmetics again, reset all the weapons again. I feel like that is just around the corner. And to be clear, I think in fact, I think the majority of people out there are still going to have a very negative opinion of Warzone and Call of Duty and this game, even with Verdansk coming out. And as much as I've enjoyed it, and I'm sure a lot of other people have, because of them taking away all the cosmetics, how long it takes to grind and level up weapons, the fact there is no toggle for a milsim option for the game, which I saw a lot of people talking about they thought was going to be coming out with the Verdansk release. There's no way they're ever going to do that, everybody. They make all their money from selling the skins and forcing that down your throat, unless they want to come out with an option that's a $15 a month, maybe more, subscription that allows you to have a milsim toggle so you don't have to see all the other skins. Because that's what's enticing you to go buy it, or not you maybe, but other people to then spend so much money. Like, you're outweighed by the people that are going to spend the money on this stuff, right? Like, it's not going to happen. But Call of Duty also just has so many players that have already quit the game, moved on. They're never going to come back in the first place. Okay, it is what it is. But I do feel like if you have been playing the game for the duration of it, this is a much better update in line with what this game was, and I think what a lot of people fell in love with in the first place of the game, than what they diverted away to with Warzone 2, for example. While still taking some of the wins that they've had over all of these years, there have been quality of life improvements that they've put in that they have kept, and in this case, adding even more. The instantaneous buyback of teammates came in incredibly clutch today even. The fact you can just hit the buy station, hit R, and it'll instantaneously buy back all of your teammates, prioritizing the ones that have the most money, is great. Even just having that vertical buy menu and the floating loot makes it so much easier to see it. It's highlighted properly, like, awesome. Now, we did have some loot still somehow get stuck under the map or inside of objects that we couldn't loot, but it was less than the floor loot system, and there's a couple other problems that we were running into I will still address. They also did revert some quality of life changes, like the precision airstrikes showing up on the TAC map, showing exactly where it's going to land, is now gone. But I think this is actually to a benefit of the casual player, which they've done multiple changes of. Removing redeploy drones, so you can't just pop an advanced UAV, redeploy, and just land on another team and immediately smack them. You have to plan ahead, make proper rotations. There's so many less plates in the game, way less economy. You have to get multiple contracts done. Use the bonus of doing multiple contracts to give you extra cash to really snowball the game, which was a lot of fun to do. Finally, having that back again, it felt nice. And even in terms of audio improvements, when Black Ops 6 Warzone came out, they just destroyed the audio. You couldn't hear footsteps at all. And I noticed this coming back after my 3-month break. Like, I was hearing footsteps again in fights. It wasn't 100%, but it was so much better. And even today, playing this map without dead silence already made this so much better of an experience to me than even Verdansk days. That was something I hated about Verdansk back in the day. Same thing with stopping power. You find this item that all of a sudden just gives you a free kill. You really can't counter it. There was one situation where I threw a C4 and tried to just detonate it early with a double tap. There was no audio and not even an explosion that happened for it. So audio's not perfect, but felt great to me. On top of not having to hear Graves every single time I'm getting into the plane. Why I would ever want to hear this guy after playing the campaign as well. Why is he there every time I want to play this game? Glad he's gone. But speaking of the contracts, they cut out a ton of them, bringing it back to the OG system. We had the supply run contracts, which were phenomenal. Just something quick you can get done. Pick up the contract, go to a buy station, instantly completes, instantly gives you one free purchase on a fire sale. Fire sale also giving you a free self-res again. I didn't notice really too many public events that were happening during this. However, I think those were also pretty rare originally in Verdansk 2. The fact that the intel contracts are just going to a place and standing at a point, shoots the flare up, giving your position away is already enough. Before locking in to an animation was just terrible. And even before that, in Warzone 2, you'd have to go up into a tower after retrieving another thing over here. You'd have to go to multiple checkpoints and go up and risk your life with the flag. It was so difficult to even do it. The reward from the scavenger actually feels great. Getting those satchels, which are such an incredible priority in this game. Like, yeah, to me, these contracts have always been something that's made Warzone stand out, just like the Gulag, versus all the other battle royales. It gives you so much more to do in the mid game, and again, with that snowball of continually increasing the rewards from each of the bounties and contracts that you do for each consecutive one, it just gets crazy. And even the Gulag, I don't really necessarily care that this is the original Gulag versus what we have now. I think they're both fine. Just better than having a 2v2 Gulag with a juggernaut in the middle of it. You know, we're back to just a raw battle of skill. More so now, there's only one Gulag that you get. At least I never found a Gulag token today. You can't buy them at buy stations, certainly. And it made the whole experience feel so much more like a proper battle royale. The final couple zones, most of them that we had today, there was no buy stations at the end. So most of the final fights were 2v2v1, or, you know, it wasn't all full stack, full squads, all rezzing. Everybody's just popping rezzes, PDS systems in the gas. It's just battling gun on gun, maybe some vehicles, kill streaks, but you're getting into endgame fights again. Even making it to a top 20 situation felt so much more difficult today. One of the other big changes that they made was with vehicles. These are back to the older system. They brought the handling, turning controls more in line with that, and they definitely felt better. Although, in that case, the audio for a lot of them was very bad. You could hear the wheels constantly spinning when you're trying to turn and accelerate. I don't know if that was just because I was on mouse and key and you can't control each of the levels of the speed like you can on a stick, but I also noticed the helicopter is not like it was in terms of splattering people, which I think is kind of for the better as well. It's still very nimble and looks better than what the last helicopter was that they had just added, but this thing seemed to blow up, as all the vehicles did, more easily. At least 2 explosions, and in the case of the helicopter, just even tapping walls could break it. But I'd say we're back more on track with that if you do like the vehicle play, and you're going to need to if you want to survive and make the rotations in this game, since you don't have the redeploys anymore. The big one today, though, was the weapons, and I was extremely doubtful, just like I was for most of these things, on sniping. The HDR, folks, they let you snipe again. The velocity is crazy. I'm hitting like 200, 300 meter snipes. Even just the fact that we have these line of sights available, it's because of the map and how this was designed. But crazy velocity, insane that it is always one-shot headshot, unless it's a wall bang from far away. But, you know, it's potential, but it can hit that one tap even from far if you can hit it. They didn't make it to our ADS time. Still feels very good as well. I used the OG Grau for the majority of the day, which is a SWAT conversion kit for another, you know, it's a different gun. It's not its own standalone one. I'm fine with that. If it plays good enough like it, we have the attachment options. Great. It was one less gun that I had to level up. AMAX felt good. Kilo felt good. They look good. A lot of people were saying, oh, it doesn't feel the same as what it did. And I don't think it ever can, because it also doesn't have the movement. It doesn't have the same systems that were back in the original Warzone, but I think it still fits into this game. Most of these guns are still essentially the same thing. There's only so many different ways that you can tweak the rate of fire, for the recoil, for the damage per bullet. What makes me the most excited, I mean, heck, I'm a dude still playing mouse and keyboard on this controller game, right? The thing that makes it feel so good for me, though, is that sniping. That's why it's very exciting to have that. I hope they do that with the SPX, which is kind of the SPR that's already in the game. Bring that thing up for a little run. They still have so many other guns in the game, like the Vel, which is the MP7. That could be brought into the meta again without actually having to make another gun. It's essentially the same gun anyways, you know? But they can add pretty much all the guns they want. I would rather have more content on the map. I'm sure they're going to add the underground subway system at some point. They already said they're going to be adding the top level train with the intel missions for the season reload. They'll go through some of the stages there. I would love to see them continue to develop the map and even take this in a different direction. And it's already promising seeing how much is in there. In fact, they added private matches a couple hours after the launch today. So We can run some YOLO solos. We might have some crazy content on it. As for the performance of the game and the servers, we had a very solid first 5-6 hours while probably most people were still at work. That evening, everything started to go downhill. We had disconnect, reconnect features not working. Honestly, I expected this right out of the gate. I was surprised we had so many hours of clean gameplay before this all broke. Then Battle.net was shutting down. I don't know if these were just natural server problems, if these were DDoS attacks. We've seen a lot of that on Blizzard's systems, in particular with World of Warcraft, especially recently. But their servers also just apparently are 20 tick hertz servers versus what's rumored to be coming for Battlefield's Battle Royale coming at the end of the year, which is going to have 60 hertz. We'll see if any of that's true. But I'd love to see some good competition there that forces them to start stepping their game up a little bit more as well here. Nonetheless, game was running very good. I'm probably still going to tinker with some of my settings, see if I can get it to look a little nicer, because a lot of the shadows and far away, it did look a little weird, although the map used to look like Play-Doh back in the day if you were sniping half the time. I think one of the biggest concerns that people have about this game as a whole, though, is the state of cheating. And they actually put a great report out. I say great, but they put out information from Ricochet, their anti-cheat system. And the most notable thing that I saw from it was that 60% of all of the reports were players reporting cheats on console players, which, if you don't know, the majority of the cheaters are on PC, not on console. That aim assist on console is just looking like cheats. Turns out it's just aim assist, guys. What they're trying to tell you is that it's a skill issue. You suck. Okay. Yeah, no, I didn't really run into any cheaters today. Nothing that was super blatant, at least, that I recognized. And it at least definitely wasn't as bad if you remember the OG Verdansk days when I don't even think there was originally an anti-cheat. People were literally flying around with cars. Blatant aimbot 30 kills across the map. I haven't seen one of those in a while. We used to run some hacked or cracked episodes that were wild back in the day. But I think it's more of a cultural problem for the game in that it was rampant for so long that now that is just the culture and the default that everybody's cheating. The number of times that I'm told I'm a cheater every day is ridiculous, especially because I don't even really play that much. Some people are out here literally 10 hours every single day playing. If I was doing that, bro, I'd be unstoppable. As a whole, I really thought that this was going to be just Black Ops 6 Warzone put on top of Verdansk. And in many ways, that is true. But they went way more back to that original state of Warzone than I anticipated. Just the fact that I've got 5 plates total with an 8-plate satchel that I can pick up, and I'm running around stressed out of my mind for plates and trying to think strategically on positioning and early rotations for the zone. Concerned that once my Gulag is gone, I'm not going to be able to get that back. I got to really strategize here. Like, I haven't felt like that in Warzone in a very long time. And if you think this is bad, because, you know, you've been used to and maybe only started playing Warzone in the last couple of years, when this first came out, they didn't even have plate boxes. They didn't even have satchels. Like, the plate struggle was way, way harder. So they've kind of found more of a middle ground between these versions. I'd love to see them take shock sticks out, all the equipment. I, in fact, thought that was the case. I thought these were being removed based on reading the initial blog post that they did. I think that's just a sunk cost. Just remove it. Let's continue on with the quality equipment. I want them to not abandon the casual players. Like, I think competitive and ranked Warzone is great to have for the sweats and the people that grind the game a lot, but please, let's have some fun LTMs, some fun Easter eggs, some fun events, not just running around collecting some coins. The safes are kind of cool, actually, but that's only in perspective with what we had for the St. Paddy's Day event. We do have one confirmed fun LTM that is coming. I think it's something they never leaned into even enough back in the day. But of course, we still ran into a lot of issues. And even on the bug side, I expected way more bugs. In fact, I was running a bingo card in my head for the ridiculously long list that we have of all the bugs that occur every single time a new update comes out. We ran into a lot of them today, but I already anticipated that, and it's probably going to take them a season or two to repair some of those issues. I'm glad they at least did a couple weeks delay. On top of the delay, for it not releasing in Black Ops 6, because I can only imagine what this game looked like at that point if it's in the state that it's in now, especially now with the servers and the game just wasn't even working. I had to get off for the day because it just stopped working. But we'll see where we take it from there. And if they decide to commit back to doing content for Big Map, I'm making a battle royale again. And does that mean that the Resurgence audience is now going to get left behind? It's their turn to be out with limited content for the next year and a half? Or is this just the update we're going to get here and Resurgence is going to go back to getting most of the content? Have they built up the teams and the systems to develop for all of it at once again? Are we going to see a standalone Warzone, which I still think is a much more ideal move? Let us have multiple maps while keeping these other ones. Sure, still integrate stuff from other Call of Duties and take the inspiration, whatever that you do, but we could build off of something. Realistically, I would say don't expect that. We've seen this long enough. That's not been the case. I don't think it will begin to be the case here. That's one of the reasons I think a lot of people have such a negative impression with the game as a whole, with what it is, but also part of the reason they eventually come back when it's back to their turn of the game being designed how they like. Once they add jetpacks and double jumping, all the Advanced Warfare players might come back, and I might be saying adios at that point again. Nonetheless, those are some of my initial impressions, thoughts, playing it. Did I miss anything? Was there anything big I've even talked about on stream? Come stop by my streams live every weekday. And as always, let me know what you think. I'm going to go through all of the comments on this. Even if we do it live on stream, we're going through these. I don't know how everybody else felt about the game. We got a ton of wins today as well. So I was feeling pretty good. But that's for this one. Thanks so much for watching. StoneMouse64, over and out.